Josh is the spiritual director for the weekend, and Chloe is providing music, and Kansas is working, and Kyle and Leah and several from our church family. We have some that are attending for the first time, and so be in prayer for that as it wraps up today. I spent most of the afternoon and last night there as well serving, and so just a really, really nice evening. And so if you've never been on a walk to Emmaus and you would like to know more about it, just ask. We'll be glad to get you pointed in the direction and love to sponsor you to be a part of that. It's a very powerful discipleship tool and makes our church stronger for those who go through and participate in that. So big believer in that. So remember those that are in prayer that are attending there this weekend and serving. Grateful Hearts is our message series that we've been a part of now this is week number 3, moving toward Thanksgiving and cultivating in us prayerfully a spirit of gratitude. We started in week number 1 with a passage from Deuteronomy and looking at that period of time when the Israelites had spent 40 years in the wilderness before they had moved on into the Promised Land. And so much taught there in that period because they were transitioning from slavery in Egypt into life in the Promised Land, but in the middle, God kept them in a barren wasteland. There was no planting and harvesting, and there was no time. They weren't able to provide for themselves. They were completely dependent upon Him to provide. And so if you've ever read that history, it's an amazing thing. And so what happens is when you come to a place in your life where God is daily providing for you in a way that He did, when literally your food is falling from the sky, okay, and you go out and pick it up, that's a provision that you can't ignore. It's right in front of your face. But Moses was preparing them for a time when they would be able to plant and harvest and grow in a land that was incredibly plentiful, in a land that was bountiful, and all of the things that you could ever hope for. And the warning message that Moses provided to these people is, hey, when life goes good, you'll tend to forget where the real blessings come from. We get it in our head that it's coming from us, that somehow we can do this on our own, that we can plant and it grows and we harvest, and God doesn't really have anything to do with it. But He does. And so he warned them. He said, you need to be careful, because when you get into a land of plenty, when you get into a land of blessing, when you go through a period, the warning for us is when we go through a period of blessed lives, that we will tend to forget the blesser. And today's message is very much a part of that. And then last week we went into Thessalonians, and Paul shared a letter with the church there and with us to help us to cultivate a grateful heart, a spirit of thanksgiving, a spirit of gratitude, a spirit of constant communication with God. Those things fit together because if we have a continual prayer life, if we have a constant communication with God, then we should be in a constant state of being grateful and recognizing where blessings come from. And that brings us to today's story, because Luke provides for us an account of something that happened, and he wrote it down because he carefully interviewed the people that were witnesses to this. And so when this particular thing happened, Jesus responded in a very particular way. What He did, and then His response to it, and the words that He shared were very important, and they wrote them down, and they had them, and they shared the story with Luke. And when Luke writes it for us, and we go back and read it, what we get is very insightful. It's a look into the heart of God. Think about that for a minute. It's a look into the heart of God and how He responds, okay, to something. And so let's look at the passage, and then we're going to break it down in 3 different sections, and then we'll see where he leads us. It comes from Luke chapter 17. I'm sure if you're a church person, grew up in church, you've read this before. Chapter 11 through 19. This is about healing the 10 men with leprosy. Okay. And so let me give you just a little leprosy background for those of you that may not be familiar with it. It's not something that we deal with in today's society, but in that society, in that culture, it was prevalent and it was very bad. Okay, we live in a land where, and in America, we may take some precautions, but we do not shun people who are sick, right? People who are sick, we have people who care for them. We wear whatever we have to wear protective-wise, but we care for them in hospitals. We care for them in our homes. We care for them that are sick. If you were stricken with leprosy, okay, the way it would go would be something like this. You would notice it somewhere on your person, somewhere on your skin. You would begin to see these lesions start to come up, and then it would be like, oh no, because there's nothing you can do. There was no doctor to call. There was no place to go. There was no cure. There was nothing you could put on it. And so what they would have to do when they begin to see this coming on them, they would have to go to the priest, right? They would go to the priest and they would show the priest what's happening to them. Now, obviously, the connection that was made in their brains, right, was that if that's happening to you, then it's punishment for you, and there's something wrong with you, and there's something there's something in your life, there's sin in your life, or there's a mistake, or there's whatever, and so this is you now, right? And so you're a leper. And so what they would do was they would label them as unclean. Unclean. And then they would have to separate themselves from everything. Think about that. You go to the priest, you say, this is what's happening, and the priest says, you're unclean. You got to go home, get your stuff, leave your home. Leave your family, leave your children, leave your people, leave your community, and you go live in a leper colony with other people who are like you. But none of the people that are part of your life will have contact with you ever again. And if you happen to come into contact with somebody that is not a leper, then you must yell, unclean, unclean, so they would know to go another way. So they wouldn't have to come into close contact with you, so they won't catch what you have. That's what a leper is, okay? That's the context that we have. And so that context of these 10 men that have this disease, that have been separated from their families, that have been separated, that have gone to the priest to show themselves as unclean and been labeled unclean, they encounter Jesus along this way. On his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance, as they would, and they called out in a loud voice. Instead of yelling out unclean, they call out to Jesus, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he saw them, he said, now this is what the interesting context, go show yourselves to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Where's the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? And then he said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. 10 lepers met Jesus. All were healed. Only one returned. Only one returned. And so this is where we begin to see this unfold. 9 received the blessing, but only one came back to receive the blesser, the one who provided. You see, gratitude doesn't always just say thank you, okay? Thank you, thanks. Gratitude draws you closer to the heart of God. So we're going to break this down and look at this. In verses 11 through 14, we shared that Jesus is in this place on his way to Jerusalem. It's not the normal route. It's a different route. He traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee, and as he was going into a village, 10 men had leprosy, and they met him. They stood at a distance, and they call out, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. And when he saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. And so this is the first thing that you understand, is that they had already gone to the priest and shown him that they were sick. And so he just sends them back. Now, we don't know how long it had been, but the first thing that we note is that there's a moment of obedience here, right? But only one of them properly responded to his healing. It says, as they went, they were healed. And so the lesions were disappearing. They were healing as they were going. This is the thing. Gratitude will open our spiritual eyes to see God's hand at work. Listen, you can experience miracles, but miss the miracle maker. Sometimes we live in this world, we live in such a blessing that we don't understand the one who's providing it for us. And so the question for you, are you aware of God's presence around you? Do you see beauty in the world that you're in, or do you see God's beauty? Are you in a state of where you are continually thanking Him for what you are witnessing? When you see a baby walk for the first time, when you experience the health or the birth of a healthy child, when you experience blessing, when you experience provision, when you experience those things, do you just say, that's nice? Or do you immediately connect that to the one who provided it? You see, that's the thing. And so these guys were going away from Christ. They were going away from Jesus, and they were being healed as they went. But only one of them was like, oh, I got to go back. I got to go back to the man who did this for me. I got to go back to the source of this. You can experience miracles, but you may still miss the master. Here's a challenge for this week. It's the last full week before Thanksgiving week. Make thank you, Lord, a part of your internal vocabulary. Okay? And here, this is the challenge. Okay? If it doesn't happen, okay? If it doesn't happen, if it's broken, okay? If you would pray and ask God for help if it's broken, then you need to be thanking Him when it's working. Okay? Just think about that. Think about that in your daily life. In your daily life, if everything that you're expecting, if you need somebody that's you're depending on somebody and to show up, and they show up, if they don't show up, what are you going to do, right? If it's not there, if it doesn't start, if it doesn't work, okay, if it doesn't come out, if it doesn't come in, if the delivery's not made, whatever it is, if something doesn't happen the way it's supposed to happen, are you going to turn to God? If you're going to turn to God if it doesn't, then you need to turn to God when it does. Okay? And acknowledge that He's at work in our lives, right? He's at work in our lives. If we only turn to Him when the wheels come off the bus, then that's one. But if when everything's working well, are we thanking Him for that? Are we acknowledging that? Are we thankful for how He has provided? Right? If we're going to turn to Him and go, oh God, I need your help, it's bad, then we need to turn to Him and say, Father, thank you for today. Thank you that this was here, that this worked, this was good, and you blessed us, and I'm thankful for it. We have to train our eyes to see God's fingerprints in daily life. Answered prayers, small mercies, quiet blessings, His provision. It's why praying before meals is a good idea. Okay? Don't make it liturgical. Don't make it rigid. Don't make it awkward. Don't make it... But when we're prepared to eat a meal, no matter what it is, if we take just a moment to acknowledge God's provision for what we're having and what we're experiencing, then that's a moment of gratitude, right? Because we'll get to this in a moment, but you realize that He's providing all of these things, and He's looking to see, do they even know where it comes from? Do they even know the blessings that they have? Did they even, didn't I feed the whole family, but only one took a moment to say thank you? You see, we need to train our minds to see God's fingerprints on the simple things. On the daily things, right? I mean, if you get out and you go get in your car in the morning and start your car up and go to work, it's great, right? What are you going to do if it don't start, right? If it doesn't start, is that the moment when the car doesn't start, when something doesn't run, you're like, oh God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, why not, when it starts, say, thank you, Lord, for providing my job and my home and the things that I have, and it's great. Thank you. Remember Him in those good moments. Remember Him when things are working and functioning the way they're supposed to do. It trains our mind. It trains our mind to see the things that are hidden from us. Not just the material things, not just the clothes we wear, not just the food we eat, not just the cars we drive, but the beauty that's around us. The beauty that's around us, the things that we experience, all things that are there, that we don't just see a sunrise, but we see God's beauty. We see His fingerprints. We see His hands. Gratitude will lead us to worship. Verse 15 says, one of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked Him. And he was a Samaritan. Gratitude moves from your heart to your lips, right? It moves from your heart to your lips. When we are in a place where we are seeing the provision that God has provided with the things that are happening, when we recognize that, when we realize that, it moves us to thinking. We all respond in different ways, right? We talked about this last week. We're all not Price is Right contestants, right? We may not all go running and shouting and turning flips, right? But we should move in His direction, in the way He made us. In the way He taught us to respond, the way He's designed us. We don't look at someone else and go, I guess I need to respond the way they do. What's important is response. Gratitude will turn blessings into worship. Kids get this, right? Kids get this. It's easy for kids. Anytime, if you've ever had toddlers, and I've had them now in 2 stages, children and grandchildren, Abby, we took her to Holiday World this summer, and she's a loner. She's not the hold my hand, right? She's when you grab her hand, she's like, no, pull it away. And so she's not that one. And so you can tell just the way they're made. But she still wants to be in your presence, right? Because she's going to be kind of her own person, and she's going to move on out. But then if she gets separated, I can see her, but she can't see me for a moment, and then you get that, where did they go, right? And now they're separated, and now they want to be reconnected. And when they get reconnected, then they're joyous. They're just joyous. It's like, oh, it's great, we're back, okay? We're back. We need to have the heart of a child sometimes, because it's so easy to stray in our minds from the provision and what God's provided us, and we seem to forget the blessings that we have. Here's a challenge for you this week. Worship becomes the natural overflow of gratitude. Okay, when we begin to really focus on the blessings of God in our lives, then the more we focus on that, the more it overflows into worship. And so here's a challenge as we head into Thanksgiving. We've got 1 full week now before we get into Thanksgiving week. Spend some time every day thanking God and name those blessings. Okay? Name those blessings. Because here's what we do. You may have a prayer list, right? If you don't have a prayer list, you probably have a grocery list, right? And so how similar are they? What's a grocery list? The grocery list is what you want. It's what you need, right? You make a list. This is what I want. I got to have some milk. I got to have some cheese. I got to have some bread. I got to have this. And so you list the things that you want. What's your prayer list? What's on the prayer list? What you want from God, right? What you're asking the Master, the author of the universe. It's what you're asking Him to give you. Do you have a gratitude list? Do you have a blessing list? See how that works? It should be equal to or more. And here's the challenge. When you spend more time thanking Him for the blessings and all the things, and you just kind of really deep dive into that, what happens is that the list, the request list tends to shrink because you realize what you already have, right? You realize what you already have. It's like an inventory. You take inventory of your blessings, and after you've taken inventory of your blessings, you're like, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm in pretty good shape. At that point, probably your prayer list shrinks for you and it increases for others, right? Your prayer list, the things that you're asking God for, is really not for you. It's more for the others that are in your life, other people that you have experienced, other things that are happening, other things that are going on. So in our prayer time, before we ask for anything, we should spend time thanking Him for everything. And so if we formulate that attitude first, if that gratitude is what's coming out of us, then that changes the way we ask to Him. Third and final point this morning is this. Gratitude brings deeper relationship. Now, we'll pull this apart because this is when I say that this is a glimpse into God's heart, I think this is very important. If you've ever had a child that's received something from someone, we notice in children their response to adults, right? And so we've all had this moment. We've all had this moment with children when we are with them and another adult gives that child, or even another child, gives them something, and we look at them to see how they respond, and we'll call them out if they don't respond appropriately, right? I've seen this my whole life, right? Somebody gives somebody something, they take it, they go to walk away, and it's like, hey, what are you supposed to say? Oh, thank you. Okay, well, why didn't you do it on your own? Right? Because that's what we're thinking, right? That's the observation. The observation is you were blessed with something, and your response was nothing. And I'm looking to see why you didn't respond thankfully. And you wonder, where does that come from? And then you look at this and you see the heart of God when Jesus asked, "We're not all 10 cleansed? Where's the other 9?" He noticed. He responded the same way we do with our grandchildren and our kids. Hey, you should have said thanks. He notices when we say thanks. He was thankful. Here's the one in front of him. He's like, wait a minute, there was 10 of them. There's just one. And so he noticed that. He paid attention to that. So if he noticed that, and Luke gives us this, and we have this account for 2,000 years, do you not think he notices when we are thankful to him for the blessings and provisions that he gives to us? That answer would be yes. He does. He notices. Gratitude didn't just heal this man, but it made him complete. Because thanksgiving leads us into a deeper fellowship with Him. You see, gratitude doesn't change God. It doesn't change Him, but it changes how close we walk with Him. You see, when we're grateful, when we have an attitude of gratitude, we're walking closer to Him. It's possible to be a part of church. It's possible to be a part of all these things, receiving all these blessings, and still miss Jesus. If we never go back and say thank you, we miss out. We miss out. We don't need to be just living in the blessing until we've taken a moment to thank the one who blessed us. And it's training our brains, it's training our minds to do that. That's important. Remember and acknowledge the one who provides the blessing. Here's a challenge for you. Return to Jesus in gratitude, okay? Make time to worship Him personally. And it's not just for what He's done, okay? It's for who He is, all right? We worship Him not for just the things that He's done for us, the list of blessings that we have, but we worship Him for who He is. If you are a born-again believer, okay, as Steve shared it beautifully in our worship time this morning, is that, look, we've been snatched from hell. That was our destiny. And so that alone is enough to eternally praise Him for forever. And then on top of that, He adds everything else that He does for our lives. So what do we walk away with? How do we put this into practice? What do we do for the week? A grateful heart is a magnet for God's presence. Be the one who returns. Okay? Be the one who returns, not the 9 who walked away. Be the one who returns. And remember that God notices when we say thank you. He notices when we acknowledge it. Okay? It doesn't have to be anything eloquent. It doesn't have to follow a procedure. Okay? It doesn't. It can be, you don't have to voice it if you're by yourself and you're in a place of just quiet worship. Just walking around in the yard, walking around and outside, driving down the road, sitting at a table that's filled with food, whatever it is, just acknowledging and looking and going, God, you have blessed me incredibly. He knows what you're thinking. He doesn't have to look that up. He doesn't have to go and ask. He doesn't have to hear it a certain way. He doesn't have to hear a song. He just knows your heart. Gratitude doesn't just change your attitude. It transforms your relationship. It transforms your relationship. And that right there is where it starts. Okay? That's where it starts. If you're struggling with any of this, you need to check that relationship. Because if you don't have it, you can't. Right? If you don't understand it, you're not going to. You can't be thankful and grateful to a God that you don't know. It doesn't work that way. He wants to know you. He wants to show you. He wants to be a part of you. He made a way for you to ask Him into your heart. And so if you've not done that, I can't think of a better day. I can't think of a better season. A season of Thanksgiving, a season of family, a season of fellowship. It all starts with a relationship with Him. Guys, if you don't have that, this is the perfect time. Let me pray for us.